IPS or OLED, something which most people are always wondering, which is better? I have a Mac setup with an IPS display and a PC setup with an OLED display. I've been using both IPS and OLED displays for over 3 years now and have easily racked up over 3,000 hours of usage between them. I'm in a pretty unique position where I've used both for such a long time period that I feel like I can come to a good conclusion on what is best. When it comes to IPS, I've actually been using a mix of the Studio Display and the Pro Display XDR over the last 4 to 5 years now. They're pretty different IPS setups though. The Studio Display doesn't have any dimming zones, it's just one LED zone lighting the display at all time, even when there's black. The Pro Display though has 576 dimming zones, which means when there is black on the screen, it can turn that part of the screen off. The Pro Display also supports True HDR and macOS handles it in a fantastic way. When you're watching a HDR video, like a HDR YouTube video, it will only make the video HDR, not the rest of the screen. It looks weird at first, but I think it actually makes a lot of sense rather than having to make the whole screen HDR. It's wild as well how bright the display can get. It can sustain 1000 nits of brightness, and when you're watching HDR and stuff, it can go up to 1600 nits, which is just insane for a monitor like this. It's one of those things which is not really possible to show over camera. You have to see it in person to really see how bright and vibrant it looks. Now for OLED displays, I've used a few different ones over the years, but the one I've been using most is the LG 32GS95UE. It's probably one of the most popular OLED monitors right now. And yeah, I've been using it pretty much since release. It does 4K at 240Hz and it can also switch to 1080p at 480Hz. I love this monitor in my gaming setup. The only issue with this monitor is that it doesn't get that bright. It only goes up to around 280 nits of brightness. So it's a monitor that you can't really use in brightly lit environments. So for those who don't know what the difference is between IPS and OLED, I'm going to quickly explain. So this display is an IPS display. You have the LCD showing you all the graphics, all the text, all that sort of stuff. And then you have LEDs lighting up different parts of the screen. So sometimes you have one LED sort of just lighting up the whole screen. Sometimes you have lots of different ones. This specifically has lots of different ones. It has 576 different LEDs behind the screen, sort of lighting it up. When it comes to an OLED display, each individual pixel is an LED. So every single pixel emits its own light, which is why it can't get as bright, because having to channel so much brightness through such a small little pixel, yeah, it's just going to burn it out very quickly. When it comes to actually usage though between IPS and OLED, the one thing OLED easily beats IPS on is viewing angles. I can actually clearly see this display at this angle and I'm pretty much looking at it side on. With this Pro Display XDR, I can sort of see it, but it's not as bright and it's a bit harder to see. It's just not as good when it comes to viewing angles compared to the OLED. The OLED as well, I feel like it looks more contrasty, it looks more vibrant when it comes to colors, but it depends, because this can get so bright, this can also look vibrant and very colorful too. And because of the way Apple have designed this specific monitor, where it's designed to be very color accurate, made for video work and stuff, yeah, it can look almost as good as OLED, but this isn't the norm. This is obviously a very pricey monitor. This is the Pro Display XDR. It's a very different IPS monitor. It's probably one of the best IPS monitors you can get. But it still does look really good just because of how bright the monitor gets. To our human eyes, brightness, the richness of color and the contrast is what looks best to us. It doesn't necessarily mean that something has to be color accurate. Sometimes when something is color accurate, it can actually look a bit washed out. OLED monitors really make color look very rich and vibrant compared to IPS displays. Now, which one is better? Which one should you choose, IPS or OLED? Unfortunately, there is no right answer here. It purely depends on what you're going to use it for, because both of these types of monitors have their own downsides. The Pro Display is great for productivity usage. The 6K resolution is incredible and great for text-heavy work due to how macOS scales text to be very tack sharp. The color accuracy and brightness are also fantastic for media work. I use mine a lot for design, photo editing and video editing. However, the 60Hz refresh rate on this specific monitor is showing its age now, but considering it was released in 2019, back then it wasn't too much of a big deal. I'm recording this at the end of February, so in a week's time, hopefully Apple have announced a new updated version with a higher refresh rate. Because of the refresh rate as well, it's not good for gaming. This isn't meant to be a gaming monitor in any way whatsoever, especially because there are no HDMI ports or display ports. Apple have clearly designed this just to be used with a Mac. Yeah, you're not going to be using it with your PC. You can technically connect it to your PC, but you're going to be missing out on lots of functionality because there are no buttons or anything on it to control the brightness and sort of settings of the monitor. The LG OLED I solely got for gaming. The glorious OLED display at 240Hz just looks amazing. And I game nearly every single day, primarily playing first-person shooters like Overwatch, so this monitor is perfect for that. However, OLED is prone to burning. My friend Ali from Optimum Tech actually did a video where he used this monitor for over 3,000 hours, and he did actually have some burn-in, some noticeable burn-in. For him, it said it really comes down to sort of, case-by-case scenario, but he did have burn-in on his monitor. Some people will notice it, some people won't. But that's definitely something to consider with the OLED monitors, and it's why I actually don't really think they're good for productivity work, especially because when you are using it for productivity stuff, you're most likely going to have static elements a lot on the screen, whether that be the Windows taskbar or the Mac menu bar. Those are going to be there pretty much all the time. And because of that, that can actually accelerate the burn-in process and can make your monitor not that nice to use because you're just seeing the same ghost elements on the screen even when you've moved away from them. I actually forced myself to use this for productivity and gaming for a week, not touching my Pro Display XDR, not touching an IPS panel. And yeah, I did not enjoy it at all for productivity. For gaming, amazing, but for productivity, I had issues with this monitor. And the monitor isn't even the issue. The monitor is actually great. The problem is the resolution. This is a 4K monitor in a 32-inch size. This is a 6K monitor in a 32-inch size. So you're getting a lot more pixels here. And because of that, and the way scaling works with Windows and macOS, I've just found text isn't sharp enough. I could feel my eyes struggling by the end of the day, and it's primarily because I'm trying to focus on the text, but the text is blurry, so my eyes are trying even harder and harder to focus on the text, which ends up actually causing fatigue, ends up making my eyes feel tired. Because of that, it does actually make me wonder how many people have issues with their eyes, primarily because the text on their displays aren't sharp enough. So it's something to consider if you are someone who struggles by the end of the day, your eyes are tired from looking at a display. Think about the text and if the text on the display is sharp or not. It's one of those things that you will never be able to tell until you use a 5K or a 6K display. Now, you may be wondering, why am I talking about resolution when this is supposed to be IPS versus OLED? Well, the reason why is there just aren't any OLED sort of monitors out there, mainstream monitors out there, that are 5K or 6K. If there was a 5K OLED or a 6K OLED that had a minimum of 120 Hz, I would most likely switch, but I'd probably have to control the light in my room more because naturally OLED doesn't get as bright. 4K OLED monitors just aren't that great for productivity work, and I also feel like for most people they're actually going to be quite dim for work environments. So which one is better? Which one should you choose? Unfortunately, I don't think there is such a thing as best. They both have their compromises. There is no perfect option. It's why I use both. IPS for productivity, especially if it's a 5K or 6K display, it makes a ton of difference when you're looking at text and UI elements all day. And OLED for gaming and movies, there's no denying OLED looks and feels so rich in comparison to IPS. I am hoping that we see micro LED in the next few years, but we're still probably 3 to 5 years away from that because it actually sort of combines both and it's just better than both IPS and OLED, and you'll get much brighter displays, sharper displays. It just fixes a lot of the issues with both of these types of displays. I've written a quick list here of what you should consider when you buy your next monitor, whether it be IPS or OLED. You've got to ask yourself these questions. Number one, is it for productivity or gaming? IPS for productivity, OLED for gaming. For now, anyway. Number two is how bright is the space you're working in? Because if you're working in a sort of work office environment where there's lots of lights on and whatever else, it's quite a bright environment, yeah, IPS is just going to make more sense because it can get brighter than OLED. If you're worried about burn-in, you will most likely have to go with IPS as well because OLED still is prone to burn-in. And then finally, how much do you want to spend? Because IPS, not this one, not this specific monitor, this is an outlier, but generally IPS monitors are cheaper than OLED monitors for the sort of same resolution. Now, you will get sort of varying refresh rates between the monitors and stuff, but yeah, IPS is usually cheaper than OLED. It's funny because when I was making this video and sort of putting it together and writing down the notes, I was trying to figure out how many hours have I spent sort of using these monitors. And yeah, when I saw it was over 5,000, it's actually around 6,000 hours over the last few years that I've spent using monitors. I thought, Jesus, like that's a lot of time to spend in front of a monitor. And that's usually around, I think I put in 6 to 8 hours a day, because when I finished working on my Pro Display XDR, I usually then switch to gaming on my OLED monitor in the evenings. So I'm using this in the day and then I'm using this in the evenings. So yeah, I'm spending a lot of time. It's probably even more than that considering how much time I also spend at home working from home. I don't have a commute. Yeah, it's scary how many hours I spend in front of these monitors, but they're well worth it. Like this cost me, unfortunately, cost me $6,000 when I bought it because I also bought the stand as well. This I didn't actually pay for. LG sent it to me. And yeah, I've used it ever since they sent it to me, pretty much since release. And I've loved it. Like I think these two monitors right now are pretty much some of the best monitors you can buy right now. But I am really hoping, because we've seen some things come out at CES earlier this year, I'm really hoping that we see some 5K, 6K mini LED monitors that compete against the Pro Display XDR, that have more dimming zones and stuff. Because 576 dimming zones in this, that's not actually that much. My TV in my living room, I have a TCL TV, which is mini LED. And the reason why I chose that is because I wanted the brightest TV I could get, even though OLED technically is better. But mini LED just made more sense. And I think that has like 3,000 dimming zones. I mean, it is big, it's like 100 inches. But yeah, that looks fantastic. Man, displays right now, it's just annoying. I think it's really annoying that there is no perfect display. There isn't sort of one display that does everything really well. There's always compromises somewhere. I will also most likely at some point have an updated monitor guide video at some point, hopefully this year, because one of my most popular sort of series on the channel is the one monitor setup, the one monitor for everything, the one monitor that you can use for productivity and gaming. And yeah, that always does really well. So I'm hoping this year there is a monitor that can be perfect for the one monitor setup. If you enjoyed this video, I'll make sure to check out these two other monitor related videos. I cover monitors on the channel a lot. I'm just obsessed with monitors and testing them out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and subscribe for more.